Now, folks, I'd like to be serious for a minute, if you don't mind. I've got a confession to make. When I was 7, I never went to school from then onwards. Nobody's fault, only my own. And it was a great handicap because I never learnt to read and write properly, you see. And the only bit of reading and writing I can do is what I picked up myself later on. I'm still a lousy speller, by the way. But that's where Beryl came in, you see. She used to do all my business for me. Because I went away to the stables when I was 7 to become a jockey. And I went down to Bishop Canning's. At the age of 10, I had my first mount in a race. I don't know whether it's a record, but I don't know of anybody that's ridden younger than that. In 1915, the First World War broke out, and it stopped racing in England. So the trainer I was with, we went out to Ireland, and I rode there for 5 seasons till 1919. Then I came back to Newmarket and became apprentice jockey riding for Lord Derby. In 1920, I went up to Malton and had my last mount in a race on a course Old Chris. And there was me, old at 16. Well, just then, at that time, my dad collapsed and died in pantomime at Newcastle. Well, that was very awkward and a very sad blow, because actually he was going to retire, start a training stable, and I was going to train horses. But fate stepped in and it wasn't to be. So they said to me, well, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I'm not going back to the racing business, I'm too heavy. They said, why don't you go on the stage? I said, what the hell could I do on the stage? They said, well, you don't know till you try. Anyway, I learned 2 songs off the records, 2 of my dad's songs, and a friend of his called Fred Harrison, he gave me a week's work at the place called the Hippodrome Earlstown. It's a little tin hut near Newton-le-Willers. And Newton-le-Willers is near Wigan, by the way. Wigan's in Lancashire. Well, anyway, I didn't go as George Formby. I took my mother's maiden name, Hoy, because my dad's name has always been top of the bill, and I knew I wouldn't be top of the bill the first time, it'd be like that. And I didn't want the name of Formby to be small. I said, I'll use Formby when I top bills myself. And I was lucky enough to do that. Well, at the end of the week, I got £5. And then I got what was known in those days as a moss tour. That was one of the big halls, and I worked in this very theatre. I was first turn, 3 minutes, died the death of a dog. Oh yes, it's truth night tonight. And at the end of the moss tour, I didn't get any more work. Of course, they gave me that for sympathy out of my dad, you see. Well, I was out of work for 3 months, and nearly starved. Then I went to what is known as a niffit show. You know, if it comes in, you get it. If it doesn't, you don't. Well, we ran 5 weeks and we finished up in West Hartlepool. Then I had a few pals in a show called the Swanee Minstrels, and they said they were going to Castleford. And would I go with them for a week? Said, we'll give you a £5. Well, that was a lot of money for me then. Well, I went over to Blackton as a minstrel, you see. But I didn't go so well. I went usually, bad. And then on the Tuesday, I met a young woman, and I fell for her. And, well, 5 months later, I married her. And that was when my luck turned. You see, I married Beryl, and then she knew a man in Newcastle called Thomas F. Connery. He used to run reviews. He gave me a week's work up there, and he liked my act. I don't know why, but he liked it. And he gave me a review contract for 5 years. Well, I never looked back after that. And I shall always be grateful to Beryl for doing all the business for me, you see. Anyway, I went on I went, and I worked, and I worked, and I worked. And, of course, it would take me a month to tell you all the different things Beryl's done for me, but some other time, probably. I'm getting back to the song now. And now I'm going to speak to the kiddies. You know, don't be as daft as I was. When you can go to school, I could have gone and I didn't. But you go to school, you do your own work. You'll find in later years it'll pay off. Because I was never blessed with kids of my own. And every time I sing this little song, well, I always feel a bit sad, you know. People have said to me many a time, how did you start in pictures? Well, have you ever felt that if you got the chance you could do a thing really well? Well, that's the way I felt about pictures. And many years ago, I came down to London, and I even wrote my own script along with Beryl and a man called Arthur Mertz. And we went all round the studios. They'd never heard of George Formby. They didn't even want to hear about him. I went everywhere, but nobody wanted to know at all. So back up to the provinces I went, and we worked around for a long time, and I was playing in a place called Warrington, and a man called Johnny Blakely came round, and he said, I'd like to make pictures with you. I nearly grabbed his hand off. Anyway, he said, come up on Sunday and we'll talk it over. So we went up on the Sunday and we talked it over, and he said, yes, I'd like to make pictures, but I haven't got a story. I said, I have. And we brought out this little story that we'd written. It was called Boots, Boots. So the whole thing was settled. We came to London and we went to the film studios. Studios. One room over a garage in Albany Street. And when we wanted to start making the picture, we had to press a button so that they stopped the engines down below. Well, at the end of 14 days, we'd finished the picture, and it cost the large sum of £3,000. Well, then came the time to sell it. Nobody wanted to buy it. But it did get a world premiere in a place called Burslem. It did, you know, and I'll never forget, because I went up there and it, strange as it may seem, it packed him out. When it was a lousy picture. Oh, it was so dark in places you had to strike matches to see it. The courting couples liked it, though. But at that time, Basil Dean, who was making a lot of very big pictures, he was going around the country trying to find out what the different salesmen wanted. And they said, we want George Formby pictures. He said, who's George Formby? They said, look through that window, and he saw a queue up right round the theatre looking at this Boots, Boots. So he got them to bring me down to Wheeling Studios. I signed a 7-year contract, and that was the start of me making 22 films. And there again, strange as it may seem, every one was a success. You see, what I've got to confess, folks, is that I don't understand music. I don't read it or write it, although I play these things. And of course, you see, a ukulele is strung in a certain key, and I can only play in one key. And a lot of my songs are in different keys, so I've got to have a different uke for each song. You see, nobody's ever heard that before. They think this is a gimmick, all this lot. But the trouble is, sometimes I pick the wrong one up. And then it's every man for himself. Of course, I'm skating on thin ice, telling you things like this, you know. But then people say to me, how did you become a star? It's a daft question, isn't it? I mean, what do? We don't do anything. We don't become stars. You people make us stars. We wouldn't be any good without you. And any of our present stars today, if they ever believe anything different, they're crazy. I shall always be grateful to the public for what they've done for me.